Greetings, Dennis Fair, retired member of the Metropolitan Police Department of Washington, D.C., serving 29 years straight, retiring June the 8th of 2019. The opinions that I give on this forum are entirely my opinions, and I'm not affiliated with any law enforcement agency. That's particularly, for the most part, a disclaimer in case somebody's like, oh man, this dude was an expert. He told me I should have did this. Or I'm not telling you to do anything. All you have to do is listen and subscribe. That's all you really need to do. Today's topic is a very interesting one, and I'm going to go into how to properly make a complaint against a police officer. A lot of people probably like, wait, man, hold up, dude, didn't you used to be a police officer? Why are you going, get that type of information or give some type of knowledge on that? You used to be a police. I'm sure some police officers will probably be like, oh man, why would you do that? If you haven't done anything wrong, or if you're not violating somebody's rights or their, civil rights, or you're not doing the job improperly or stopping them racially profiling or, something like that, you don't have nothing to worry about. I told, as I said before, I spoke before on this forum in the beginning, I'm going to discuss topics that are not necessarily, police friendly, and some topics are not necessarily citizen friendly. I'm going to call it like I see it. So of course, in some topics, I'm probably going to have some citizens, like a little upset, and I might have some police officers upset as well when they see certain topics. So, but when it all boils down to it, I don't really care. I'm not doing it for monetary gains or anything like this. I do it strictly just to share knowledge and hopefully have other people subscribe and share it to somebody else. Because at some point, you might not feel like you'll ever need some of this information. I guarantee you scroll through all the topics that I have discussed, there'll be something. There'll be one of the videos that you will be able to use something. And I'm not saying the entire video, oh man, I learned everything from that video. There will be something in one or two of the videos that you will have some knowledge gained from watching. It's simple as that. I want to discuss, like I said, how to properly make a complaint against a police officer. Should you be stopped or detained or just have a form of interaction with a police officer? Now, a lot of people, again, might not feel like they'll ever need that. Some people don't feel like, I'll never experience that with the police. Well, you may not experience it, but there's always a chance that you will. Some of us watching this video know that we have experienced it, and 9 times out of 10, we'll experience it again. And the bottom line is, if you haven't experienced it, one of your loved ones or friends might experience it. So to watch this video will be beneficial, so you'll have some knowledge in case somebody comes to you and say, hey man, you're not gonna believe what happened. Police stopped me last night. I didn't know that I didn't have my lights on, and they stopped me, took me through the change and searched my vehicle and all that. The officer was very belligerent towards me, and I just was wondering, what do I do in that situation? This video is going to answer some of the questions in reference to how to make a complaint properly. Now, I'll go into it. First thing we want to do is establish if you even have a complaint. Simply being stopped by the police because you, say for example, you passed a stop sign. You want to make a complaint because the officer gave you a $50 ticket, and I believe those tickets a lot of times in DC they did carry like 2 points. You pay the ticket, you got 2 points. Simple as that. Of course, what's $50? But that could be a lot of money to somebody, but that's not even the point. It's not so much the monetary value of the ticket. The problem here is the points. And, depending on if you drive for a living or what type of policy you have, your insurance might already be high from other situations. So those points could affect your insurance. And this is something that you have to take into consideration when you just up and decide to pay the ticket. That's like admitting guilt. A lot of times people don't have the time or don't want to take the time to take the ticket to court to try to get the points dismissed. Pay the fine. That's not even an issue. Pay the fine, but if you can get those points dismissed, that's the objective. But that's a total different situation that I'll discuss as well in another topic. But right now, we're talking about making a complaint. Now, obviously, you get pulled over, for example, by a police officer for a stop sign. I'm going to use that as a scenario. You passed the stop sign. You did what's called a rolling stop. You didn't come to a complete stop. You pretty much slowed, and your wheels never stopped. You went through the stop sign. What you didn't notice, you glanced at both sides. You didn't see any cars coming. But what you didn't notice, it was the police car parked with an officer in it monitoring that intersection, looking for individuals that were making rolling stops and passing the stop sign. There's no such thing as really a rolling stop. I mean, that's a definition of it, but in reality, you either stop, you either come to a complete stop, or you don't. No matter how slow you slow down, if those wheels never came to a stop, you didn't stop. You get a ticket for that, and the officer pretty much identifies himself when he approaches you. Officer so-and-so from so-and-so district, do you know why I stopped you? And a lot of times, they already know why they stopped you. They just want to see if you know. Now, a lot of times, if you tell the officer, I know I passed the stop sign, guess what? You just admitted to it. Now, if this officer, of course, in my day, they didn't have the body-worn cameras. But if you just said that, it's a waste of time for you to even contest it. Again, I'll get into that on another video, contesting moving violation or contesting parking violation. That's a whole nother video that I'm going to do. But if you say that, you pretty much just admitted to the officer that you know what you did. And of course, the officer, if he's real sharp, he's going to take notes, or she's going to take notes as to your statement when he approached you and asked you, were you aware why you're being stopped? Okay, I'll go further. Now, if you were stopped and there was no unprofessionalism, the officer wasn't unprofessional with you or didn't do anything for the most part that violated your rights or anything like that, you really don't even have a complaint in a situation like that. You pretty much got to, obviously, you have the right to contest the ticket. If you feel you came to a complete stop, you can contest the ticket. However, that is not a complaint. That's totally different. That's where you would fill out the documentation to contest the ticket. And I don't know if they're actually having actual in-person ticket hearings, where you can contest the ticket in person. At one point during COVID, you couldn't do that. Of course, that was a backlog and all that. I don't know. Maybe now they've started allowing people to contest tickets. And, obviously you would bring evidence and testify before the hearing examiner in reference to contesting the actual violation. Not the officer's treatment or actual involvement when it came down to you and the officer. You are contesting the fact of the violation. That's totally different. But in a situation where you have a valid complaint against the officer, and I'll turn the scenario in another direction where we're not really stating that you don't have an actual valid complaint. This scenario, you will have a complaint that I'm going to give. Hypothetically, you're driving and you're in an area that possibly may be a high crime area or what have you, and you pull over in the area just to plug your phone up, because you don't want to do this while you're driving. Your charger's in the floor. You pull over, reaching for your charger, you parked, and you plug your phone up and get your phone charging or what have you, and you're getting ready to pull off. And next thing you know, as you pull off, you get lit up. And when I lit up, it means the officer has turned the lights on, hit the chirp, pull over. So you figure like, wait a minute, I was just parked. I just pulled over to get my charger off the floor and plug my phone up. Pull you over. You're waiting for a while, because a lot of times the officer's not going to approach your vehicle right away. A lot of times, that's in a case like that, a lot of times the officer is running your tags and waiting for a response back. In some cases, the officer may not be running your tags. They're actually watching, or he or she is watching, to see your reaction. Are you panicking? Are the brake lights constantly going on and off? Things like that. These are things that the officer's paying attention to. Is there a lot of movement inside of the vehicle once the actual traffic stop is initiated? A lot of times that's suspicious behavior. Now, that's something, like I said, a totally different situation, but we're talking about initially this traffic stop. Why did this officer stop you? Okay, so we go a little further. The officer eventually gets out of the car. He or she approaches your vehicle and roll down the window, and you're dumbfounded as to what's going on, because you really don't know what's going on. The officer asks for your license and registration. So you asked, no problem, officer, I'll provide that, but what did I do? And the officer says, just in a high crime area, and this is like I said, I'm gonna go on with this scenario because these are actual the scenarios that I'm giving you. People have actually experienced this. Now, I haven't actually experienced this exact scenario, but I experienced one similar. But I'll go into that later. This individual officer says that he's stopping you. Hey, you in a high crime area. I noticed that you stopped briefly and you pulled off in a real sudden manner. Now, we both know that's not the case. A lot of times officers will often exaggerate and see things that they don't see. That means basically the officer's lying. That's just my figure of speech for saying that. That's the officer's lying. And I have no problem saying that. Again, I'm not going to be on the officer's side. I'm not going to be on the citizen's side. You either right or you wrong. So some people are going to be like, oh, I can't believe you said that or what have you. Or some police officers going to be like, man, why you going there? What side you on? You giving these folks all this information like you against the police. Nah, I'm against wrong because when it all boils down to it, when I take that uniform off, I'm human. And I go through the same thing. I've been through the same thing. The only difference between me and the average person, a lot of times, the average person is not aware when they're being violated. I know for a fact as soon as the officer approaches whether or not I'm being profiled racially or any of that type of thing. And a lot of times because you pulled over, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are racially profiled. Now, if an individual, obviously, you got tinted out windows, and things of that nature, and the officer can't see you or what have you, it's not so much you being racially profiled. You're being profiled, but you're being profiled because of the type of vehicle you drive. Now, obviously, if you're driving a bucket, and that's a vehicle that's extremely banged up, just a figure of speech, and I define most of these because I can't assume everybody knows some of the street jargon or street terminology. You driving a vehicle like that, and the police, obviously pull you over, tinted windows, beat up car, can't see inside the vehicle, so can't say they're racially profiling you because they don't know what your race is or any of that. But they're profiling you based on the description of your vehicle. Now, that shouldn't be the case unless the vehicle's operated and it's safe. For example, it's deemed unsafe. Obviously, if you're driving down the street and the muffler's dragging and sparks and all that, okay, the officer can pull you over. That's legit. But back to the scenario. The officer tells you, high crime area, notice that you pulled over and all of a sudden you suddenly pulled off. And the officer might even go as far as exaggerating, saying you pulled off in a sudden suspicious manner once I got behind you. Now, mind you, you didn't even know the officer was behind you. You never saw him. You just pulled off. You got your charger, plugged your your phone charger into your cigarette lighter, what have you, your charger for your vehicle, and plugged your phone up and you pulled off because obviously you couldn't reach into the floor while driving. Now you could do it, but I don't recommend doing that. I mean, obviously a lot of times the direction that you reaching in the floor while driving, that's the direction your vehicle will bear off to. Like if you reaching to the right, your vehicle's going to the right. So why not just pull over and get your items safely? So you do this, officer hits you with, I just pulled you over because you suddenly pulled off or what have you, license registration. You give that. And also goes back to the vehicle and runs your information. Actually, and I'm going to go further than this, but I'm going to stop it right here. The officer's already in violation. That's not a legitimate reason to stop. That's what we call in law enforcement back in my day. There are officers that did these types of things. We called them people that hummed people. When you hum people, that means you're looking for something and you fishing for something, and whatever you find, you're going to try to pin it on them. It's so much crime that's actually going on, you really don't need to do that. You can actually find somebody committing a crime with ease. It's very easy. You don't really need to profile or any of that and play the game dirty. You know what I'm saying, by doing something like this. But the individual actually tells you this, goes back to the vehicle, runs your information, comes back, proof of insurance and all that. Everything is legit. Comes back to you, asks you, hey, by the way, is anything in the vehicle that I need to know about? Weapons, guns, drugs? Is something in this vehicle I need to know about? And you say, no, it's nothing in the vehicle that I need to know about. I mean, is something happen? Officer says, no, nothing happened. I'm just asking you, is something in the vehicle? Do you have any drugs or any type of paraphernalia or any weapons in this vehicle? So, the average person a lot of times that actually may have something in the vehicle. You might have a knife in the vehicle. You might have a knife in the glove compartment. Now, if you sit there and say, for example, how I got a knife in the glove compartment, and depending on what type of knife it is, or the jurisdiction or what have you, it's a knife in the glove compartment. First of all, whatever you do, don't pull that knife out. Don't show it to the officer. Don't reach for it. Don't go in the glove compartment. If the officer obviously wants to go in it, obviously can't anyway. But don't reach for it or don't go for it, whatever you got in your vehicle. And the thing about that is the officer's fishing at that point. If you haven't done anything in reality, we know you didn't. You know you didn't, but the officer's fishing for something because all your information came back legit. So from this point, can't get you for no permit, meaning your license is valid, you're not wanted, you don't have any warrants, your registration and proof of insurance all come back. At this point, the reason these questions are being asked is because the officer's now fishing or trying to find something. Trying to, and like I said, the reason we call it fishing, trying to find something. He's got the line in the water, hoping to catch something. In this case, he's got the line, for the most part, in the water, hoping he finds some form of some type of contraband or something that will lead him to be able to go into that vehicle and do a full search. Now, of course, they may even ask you, can they search your vehicle? And a lot of times people will say, hey, can I search? You mind if I search your vehicle? A lot of times, and people will not necessarily know that they can say no, or they don't want to complicate things. They feel like there's nothing in the vehicle. I don't got a problem with them searching it. So you allow them to search it. Now, granted, you don't have to do this. A lot of people, unfortunately, don't know this. You can just say no, or you can ask questions like, why do you want to search the vehicle? I haven't done anything. Or did you get a call from me as I pulled over that quick? And these things are something you have to be thinking about, and it's something that you have to take into consideration of finding out what the police can stop you for and not stop you for. Because if you don't know, you know what I'm saying, they're going to violate you if you get the right, more or less, not the right, if you get the wrong officer that pulls you over and you don't have the knowledge of basics as far as knowing what the officer can do and what the officer can't do, they're going to violate you. You know what I'm saying? It's just like somebody selling something, gold or some fake gold or something. If you don't really know what to look for, or the knowledge to know, wait a minute, this dude's selling this chain for $50 and it looks gold, it looks real, but you don't have the knowledge to be like, man, that's some BS, that's not real or whatever. No thanks. You're going to fall for it. And you fall for it, you let the officer search, and the officer find something that might not even be contraband, something lethal, weed-like substance, as that's what would be written in the report. So, from that point, this is back in the day, of course, you can't even do that. Marijuana for the most part is legal, but I'm just using this as examples. You allow him to search, he finds something similar to that, and it might be some legitimate marijuana from somebody that might have been in the vehicle, but not enough to actually charge someone with. That individual finds that or thinks that it's something there, this even might not even be marijuana, but he says that, then he'll say, oh, this is in your vehicle. Has anybody been in your vehicle smoking marijuana or what have you? Have you ever had anybody? A lot of times you might say, well, I had friends periodically in there, but, I haven't smoked anything like that, and from that point on, you're already thinking that, oh, man, it's a weed in the back or whatever. Reality is nothing in your car, and it's nothing that really, sometimes there's probably, it even looks or resembles weed, but that's what you're being told. You know what I'm saying? And you go along with it. So from that point on, one of the assisting officers will transfer you to another part of the vehicle, maybe to the back of the vehicle or to the sidewalk, or sit you down on the curb, and they do a full search on your vehicle. Now, mind you, if you don't have nothing in the vehicle, you're going to be delayed. You're going to be taken through some changes as far as waiting, and depending on what the temperature is, or you're going to be standing out there or sitting out there. And while the officers rummage through your vehicle, and guess what? They're not putting anything back. That's just not going to happen in most cases. Every now and then you might find some officers that are a little more tactful, but for the most part, they're not putting none of that stuff back. When they're looking for something, they're looking for it. And after they can't find it, guess what? You got the job of putting all that stuff back. And obviously, the more stuff you have in a vehicle, the more stuff you're going to have to put back and go through, as far as organized, if what you had was organized. So they don't find anything, and you're held. You might have been going somewhere with a time frame, time limit, where actually time you needed to be somewhere. Guess what? You late now. You're extremely late. Obviously, you're gonna have to explain to whoever you were going to meet at that certain time. For who knows, you could have been going on an interview. You know what I'm saying? You just never know. Anything. You could have been going to take care of some business. You could have been going to take somebody somewhere, a doctor's appointment, a grandmother or mother that had to be there at a certain time. Then you were delayed simply because you were pulled over. Basically, you were violated. Now, in a particular situation like that, you've got to start from the beginning when this starts transpiring. And a lot of people don't do this. You have to take mental notes. Why did you ask the officer why did he stop you, or if you did that, or if the officer didn't, explains to you why he did. For example, in this case, explains that he stopped you because you might have been in a high crime area, or it was suspicious how you pulled over suddenly and pulled off. That's something that they could say. However, with those particular situations, you haven't violated anything. The officer can't give you a violation for pulling over abruptly unless you do so where you might almost cause an accident and you didn't signal or anything like. But if you pull over and you driving and you don't do it within a reckless manner, where's the violation? I can't write you a ticket suddenly pulled over. That's not a violation. Pulled over in a high crime area, that's not a violation. You know what I'm saying? Driving a vehicle that's extremely damaged or dinged up, hot tinted windows. Now, obviously, with the tinted windows, depending on what jurisdiction you're in, that's something that can come into play. But the officer cannot pull you over alone for tinted windows. It's got to be some other violation. Meaning, even if you have your front window tinted, which is illegal, you got your front window tinted, the officer cannot pull you over. Well, in D.C., I'm speaking on D.C. I can't speak for other jurisdictions. Obviously, you can Google or look up those requirements when it comes down to tint and what's not legal and what have you. But the officer cannot pull you over simply because your vehicle was blacked out. That's not working. Now, back in the day, that was done. You know what I'm saying? You came through a highly blacked out vehicle. Back in the day, everybody's vehicle wasn't tinted like it is now. Nowadays, most vehicles are tinted. Hell, most SUVs come with the rear windows tinted. So, that's not really a big deal nowadays, but you still, every now and then, you got a few officers that still go there, even though it's not a violation. It's not a primary violation where you can legitimately pull the officer can pull you over and conduct a traffic stop. Well, not for that alone. Although you got some people that might say that you did something else, or you changed lanes without caution, or you changed lanes without using a mechanical or hand signal. And some of these things, will have you guessing, well, wait a minute, did I use my signal? And you'll start to ask yourself, did I do this? And question yourself, when a lot of times you did it. You changed the lanes with a signal, but because the officer got on you, now you're doubting yourself. And a lot of times people get so paranoid dealing with the police, they don't even literally remember if they did use this signal. Because a lot of times you're nervous. The last experience you had with the police was a bad one or what have you. So it's understandable to be paranoid and things of that nature, or somewhat nervous, or even agitated. You know what I'm saying? Or it can make you belligerent. But the thing is, you have to do, when these types of situations happen, you have to be able to take mental notes. You have to be able to stay calm. You have to be able to pay attention to what the officer's doing, pay attention to what the officer's asking. And if you know it's on video, the whole belligerent, going wild and then acting all, you just pull me over because I'm black, you just pull me over because I'm white, you just stop me because I'm this. Even if that's the case, and sometimes that might be the case, but screaming and doing all this belligerently and being, aggressive toward the officer, even though the officer violated you, remember, this is on video. So when it's played in the presence of high acting official that's with the department that you're making the complaint against, you're going to feel stupid because you scream, you kirking out, you call the officer all types of this, or officer, you a sellout, you just doing this because I'm so-and-so, so-and-so. When you're upset, you say some crazy things. That's emotion. You got to learn and be able to, although it's hard, to control that emotion. And it's hard to control if you've had some really, really negative experience with a police officer. So it's hard to be passive and just sit there and say nothing and go with it. But by doing that, it validates the complaint more. Now, if you're acting a fool and going off, going wild, most cases, your complaint is gone nowhere. Even if most cases it's legit. Even if you have a legitimate complaint where the officer did violate you and did pull you over unjustly, your complaint has gone out the window a lot of times because of how you acted. Now, a lot of times the officials, in most cases, back in the day, depending on if the officer and the official are really close, you got some officers that actually hang out with their superiors, meaning some officers may hang out with their lieutenant, hang out with their lieutenants or sergeants when they're off. They might go out drinking, may hang out to eat. Their wives might know each other. They double day hang out. So it's very difficult to really push that complaint if you don't really have some real substance, because the commanding official a lot of times will be like, BS, don't trip, I got it. So the officer a lot of times goes, and basically the complaint is swept under the rug. A commanding official might tell you you're okay or play the game with you, say, while you sirs, this happened, I'll definitely discipline him, and if that's what's said, I'll definitely handle it. And you go away thinking that you accomplished something. In reality, when you get out of the station, a lot of times they're laughing at you. I've seen it a lot of times, depending on the official and the officer, they working together, so it's not like they're going to go against each other. The officer is the sergeant's or the lieutenant's close friend outside of the department, and a lot of times they're not looking at it from that aspect. So unless it's a real gross negligent violation, something small like the officer did this or just pulled you over for no reason and didn't physically put his hands on you and get to that point where something like that can't be swept under the rug. But if it's something like this, a lot of times that's swept under the carpet, and the officer and the lieutenant or the sergeant a lot of times will laugh about it and go on with their merry way. And you'll go home thinking that you did something when you didn't do jack. The thing what most people don't do is the officer, sergeant tells them, hey, look, I'm going to handle this. He's going to be disciplined or what have you. A lot of people just walk away with, I got him. Yeah, his sergeant's going, yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, I feel better. There's nothing that's going to happen. And a lot of times people don't even follow up to find out, like, okay, well, hey, this is Robert so-and-so. I had made a complaint a week ago, and you advised me that the officer would be disciplined. I would just like to know, what was the discipline? A lot of times, they're not going to reveal to you what the discipline was, and that's cool, but there should be some form of documentation that states that the officer was disciplined, or you need to be able to talk to somebody as far as a higher up. You need to go, if a sergeant told you that he was disciplined and he's not going to provide any form of proof other than, hey, look, just take my word, man, we got it, we dealt with it. That's not good enough. You have to go from that point, if it's a sergeant, to a lieutenant. And then you explain to the lieutenant the situation and what have you. And you would like to know what the discipline was. What was the outcome of the investigation on your complaint? You made a complaint. Just simply making a complaint and walking away without following up on it is pointless. A lot of people do it. A lot of people complain about what the police do. A lot of people complain about what the police don't do. Well, here's another one. What do you not do? So I'm going to do the same thing and spin the tables. I'm going to complain about not only what the officers do. Yeah, we know officers screw up. But we also know, what about what people don't do? Now, who's to blame if you won't even take the time to make a complaint? Now, there's some people, they know they're being violated, but they're scared, or for whatever reason, they don't want to make no waves. They don't want to make trouble. So, man, I ain't going to say nothing. I don't want no trouble. Okay, so you can't complain about how you treated by the police. You don't have the time or the mentality to stand up for yourself and make a complaint. I've personally written complaints for people before I even retired. Of course, you can't come to me and say you had a gun in the car and man, they stopped me, man. I just feel like, I don't know why plainclothes Joker stopped me, man. I did have that 9 on me, but look, I can't help it. Don't even waste my time with that foolishness. But if you are stopped or you're involved in an accident and you somebody I actually have a rapport with, I'm going to help you. Now, I'm not going to charge you. I need to be charging some of these folks that have come to me because some of these individuals I have actually written their entire complaint up for them. And I should have charged them. But that's not really what I was about. If you have a rapport with me and I know you and you come to me legitimately like, look, man, they did this. So I was in an accident. The officer gave me a ticket for so-and-so. But how did he give me a ticket? He wasn't even on the scene. And nobody saw anything. But how did I get the ticket? Depending on the scenario, that's not legit. The officer has basically stories from the other driver that says you passed the red light. Now, obviously, if it's no outside witnesses, how can you take one person's word over the other person's word? Now, if you have no specific training in recreating accident scenes and things like that, and you haven't had anything other than academy training, that individual can take that ticket to court and get that dismissed with ease. Now, of course, I could write that. I could write the tickets contesting that. I could write the individuals. I could actually. I'm just sitting here thinking, trying to put these words together. I could write the individual's testimony against that ticket he received in like 3 minutes, and it would be dismissed. It's point blank. The officer wasn't there. How do you say or charge me with running a red light if it's no cameras that you can visibly view the footage? There's no, witnesses that were there that's not related to the scene that say, hey, officer, he did pass the red light. I saw it when I was crossing the street. Almost struck me. Something like that is different, but you can't assume, well, based on this, it looks like he ran the light. I'm giving him a ticket for the passing the red light. That's been done many times, and a lot of people just paid the ticket, $75 ticket, and got the points. And guess what? In most cases, their insurance went up. Now, obviously, it's already traumatic enough to be involved in an accident, not to mention being charged with an accident, getting a ticket that you weren't even really in the violation for. In most cases, maybe you were, but nobody can prove that you were. And I'm not telling you to just constantly take these chances and blow lights and travel at high rates of speed, hoping that you can do this every time. Because eventually, you're going to get caught up because your driving history doesn't lie. Now, if you got a whole lot of past violations for passing red lights and stop signs and all that stuff, it's going to be hard to explain that when they pull your record up and you got like a million tickets for the same violation. That's not going to work out too well for you. But again, you have to look at the scenario and the situation, because somebody else did this and lost, or this person made a complaint against police and lost, doesn't mean that you should give up. It's just to quit or give up is the easiest thing in the world to do. It's so easy. You know what I'm saying? And obviously, that's a crowded highway. The quitting highway, I call it. You know what I'm saying? The give up highway. It's easy and it's full of people. Now, you can take the easy road and contest it, because very few people a lot of times contest tickets or make complaints or what have you against police. And I'm telling you, the reason you should do it, because you'll make it sometimes better for the next individual. The next individual might not go through what you went through. Of course, now you could be selfish and be like, well, I'm not worried about the next individual. I'm only concerned about myself. Yeah, that's cool too, but making the complaint when it's a valid complaint will possibly prevent the next person from going through it. Now, if somebody obviously had made a complaint against the officer that randomly pulled you over because he said you was in a suspicious area and you suddenly pulled over and you suddenly got ready to pull off, now if somebody had addressed that the first time he did it, then he likely or she likely wouldn't have did it again. But these are a lot of times when officers commit violations like this, because they're violating your rights, and it's a form of profiling, and and it's not necessarily always racial. There is racial profiling. I won't sit there and dismiss that, but in most cases, it's not the officer's first time doing it. You just not that lucky where you that special where you happen to just pull over and nah, you not the first. You might be the 1,000th person to get stopped like that because the officer has used that as a form of technique to get a lot of contraband or do some illegal searches. It's just a matter of finding the right individual that doesn't know his or her rights that's going to allow him to search. If you pull 1,000 vehicles over, if you start the beginning of your tour and this is all you do all day as a police officer, guess what? You're going to eventually get something. You're going to get a gun. I mean, that's not hard. But the whole scenario is not valid. You just can't pull people over because of the type of vehicle they're driving or the way they look or, you saw smoke coming out of the vehicle so it looked like they were smoking marijuana. And this is, of course, you can't even stop anybody for that. You can't even stop anybody in D.C. for the smell of marijuana. They could have a whole cloud of smoke like from, Cheech and Chong coming out of the vehicle. And as long as it's not, in a situation where it's possibly obstructing the driver's view, where it's like large amount of white smoke coming out of the vehicle, and it's just driving down the street like something from a movie, the officer can obviously legitimately stop you. But something just regular, simply because it's marijuana smoke coming and the officer can smell it, that's not good enough. Like I said before, that doesn't mean the officer won't make up something else to stop you. Now, obviously, if the officer follows you long enough, trust me, especially if you don't know he's behind you or she's behind you. Even if you know the officer's behind you, if you're followed long enough, you're going to do something wrong. Even if it's nothing more than going across the lane a little teeny bit, you cross the line or something, the officer can stop you at that point for failing to maintain the lane. Even though you didn't cross out of your lane, you just maybe might have somehow, while you drive, you so paranoid and watching your rearview mirror, you kind of straddled the center line a little bit. Now, no cars are coming. You didn't almost cause an accident or anything like that, but you straddled that line just a little bit. That's enough for he or she to pull you over. So, for the most part, in a case like that, when you know the police are behind you and they just can't really get anything on you yet, and they just follow you, and you're getting ready to be pulled over. And if you're paying attention to your surroundings, you should know when the police are getting ready to pull you over. And some people are not as aware of their surroundings as others. I pretty much am always aware. And I've had officers get behind me, and I knew they were getting ready to pull me over. Sometimes I've had officers get behind me before they activated the lights I pulled over, which threw them for a loop. They got super paranoid because that was something that they weren't expecting. But a lot of times they are behind you and following you, and they are running your tags just to see what it comes back to. Like, for example, you're driving a Mercedes-Benz or a Suburban or something like that. Run your tags. Tags might come back on a Suburban to a Nissan Altima. Okay, obviously, something wrong here. These tags don't fit the truck. So a lot of times they'll do that in hopes that the tags come back to something else. Now, at that point, they can conduct a traffic stop. That's legit. But if that doesn't work, well, we're going to follow you until you commit some kind of violation, okay? So the smart thing to do in a particular case like that, even if you have no intentions or that's not your intention, I'm just telling you. I'm just giving you advice. Now, you don't have to do this. This is not something that's in stone or anything. But if the police get behind you and you have an idea that they might be getting ready to stop you, just pull over. Pull over. Pull over as soon as they get behind you. Pull over as soon as we get behind you. Now, a lot of times that'll throw the officer for a loop because they won't know what to do. You didn't even give them a time to really observe the vehicle long enough to find a violation. So a lot of times when you pull over suddenly like that, and I'm not saying whip the vehicle to the right or to the left like you on a racetrack or something, but pull over slowly, merging to the right or to the left. Use your signal. Please use your signal, because if you don't, that's a legitimate reason too. Hey, failure to use hand or mechanical signal, that's a violation. So you merge over, you use your signal, and you slowly merge into a space that's clear, and you put your vehicle in park. Now, obviously, if they keep going, cool. But if they pull over with you, and they don't activate those lights right away, you already know what's getting ready to happen. the fishing expedition is getting ready to start. So again, you have to pay attention from the time that happens to the time that the traffic stop is over and the officer walks to the vehicle, and if he or she pulls off. And of course, you may not necessarily remember everything, but once the whole scenario is terminated and the officer goes his way or what have you, if you don't get a violation or arrested or something like that, take notes. Sit there and take down everything that happened so that when you get home, you'll be able to remember everything. It's fresher in your head if you do this while you're on the scene. Wait until you get home or calling Joe Blow or calling so-and-so. I can't believe this happened. You're not going to believe these MF stopped me just for so-and-so and said I was in high crime murder. Yeah, that's cool. You can do that later. But take the time to write down what the officer did, what the officer said. Was he sarcastic with you in his responses? Was he belligerent? Things of that nature. But a lot of times people become so hostile, so angry with the police. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times that turns it into something that could have been avoided if you had just kept your cool. Now, when you go and make the complaint, even if it's a official that's not close with that officer, you might have some officials have no dealings with officers, and they know certain officers are just screw-ups. We've had them. I've worked with some of them throughout my career. Matter of fact, I've worked with a lot of them just throughout the career, not on a regular, but there are certain officers that were screw-ups. And it's a known fact that some officers were so much of screw-ups, nobody wanted to work with these officers. Nobody even wanted to be on the scene with certain officers because that's how much they screwed up. And guess what? A lot of those same officers that I'm talking about made it to retirement. So it can happen, but if you got an official that's well aware that this officer's always screwing up, and you go in there really professional, you don't go in there reeking of marijuana or after a couple of Heinekens and make your complaint should they want to physically talk to you or something like that. Because a lot of these things you don't even have to physically do in person. The times have changed, so you can actually do it by email. Me personally, I didn't care. I did it before the police department, during the police department, and I'll do it after the department. If it means that I have to come in person and do it, I'll make time. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, with me being retired, I got time. But some people still make excuses not to make a complaint against the police because they just don't feel like it, or it's not going to be worth it, or it's pointless. All they're going to do is look out for them. In reality, you're just making up excuses because a lot of times you don't know how to make a complaint. You don't know what to put in the complaint. You don't even know how to compose it. And sometimes you don't really, know something happened, but you can't even explain to it in layman's terms what happened. I asked you, so what happened? Man, the police just stopped me, man. Just stopped. Okay, what happened? What was the violation? I don't know, man. They just stopped me. I don't even remember. They just stopped me. My man, what did they tell you they stopped me for? Man, they didn't tell me nothing, man. They just stopped me. Now, I know I've heard that before. That's lies. A lot of times individuals so hostile, so mad. Police told him why he was stopped and everything, but the individual doesn't remember anything. Now, obviously, if it's somebody I got a rapport with, I can't help you help yourself when you can't even give me the information as far as to what happened. And like I said, I'm not biased when it comes down to police. I'm not biased when it comes down to citizens. Simple as that. You know what I'm saying? When it comes down to it, you either legit or you not. I mean, don't try to make no complaint if you had coke on you. Obviously, something went down, the officer pulled you over, and as they pulled you over, there was another officer on the passenger side. Nobody in the vehicle but you. You don't have tinted windows. You roll, windows down or what have you. And officer, come and look, and you got white baggies on the seat of the passenger seat. The officer asks you, hey, what is that? Oh, man, that's not mine. No, what is it? Is that cocaine? It might be. But I'm saying it's not mine. My man just got out. I just dropped my man off or whatever. Come on, man. From that point, it's going downhill. You got coke in your car. Now, you can play that, or they just pulled me over for this or that. And they probably did. Sometimes it happens. They pulled you over because of the type of vehicle you drive. They pulled you over because of the way you look. Yeah, and they could have pulled you over because of your race. It happens. I'm not going to sit here and BS you and tell you it doesn't happen. It happens every day. It's happening to somebody right now. Now, what you going to tell the officer, or how you going to explain the coke? It just dropped out of the sky? You know what I'm saying? You riding around with coke on the seat, or you didn't think they would be pull you over, or you were actually counting the baggies, and all of a sudden they pulled you. You didn't have time to put them all back in your pocket or whatever. So a few baggies still left on the seat. So obviously, even if the traffic stop wasn't legit, by the time they doctor up the narrative and create another scenario and explain, when you go to court, they're not going to be focused on, oh, the officers didn't actually have a valid reason to stop them. In most cases, they not. And you got a criminal history, what have you. A lot of times they look at all that. And unfortunately, it shouldn't matter if the officers did not legitimately conduct a traffic stop legally, then all the proceeds found in that traffic stop should be thrown out. But a lot of times that's not what happens. You got criminal history. You don't really know the game of the criminal justice system. You in it. You constantly going in and out of the system, but you don't know it. You don't know the internal workings of it. The criminal justice system works like a machine. Another situation that I'll get into on another video, but back to this, you can't really make the complaint now. Of course, you can make the complaint after you beat this court case. But the the ticket a lot of times is the least of your concern after you got found with 20 or 30 baggies of coke. You know, you got to fight a criminal case now. So all of a sudden the whole why you stop me, goes out the window. And a lot of times, you can have legal representation when it comes down to that. But, you got a court-appointed attorney, and that's a whole nother situation, another video I'll do. They're not going to even give you no types of advice on how to fight that whole traffic stop thing. The court-appointed attorneys get the same amount of money for you as they would do for me if I needed a court-appointed attorney. So they're not going to treat you no special and say, hey, look, we see right here that it looks like the officer never wrote you a ticket, for the violation that they say they stopped you for. So, that's a good point that we're going to probably go against, and that's going to be one of our defenses and a valid scenario that we need to bring up. Where was the ticket if you were stopped for this or that? You know what I'm saying? But again, you have to know, at least common sense wise, if you have a valid complaint against the officer. You can't just assume because they stopped me, I'm complaining. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't work like that. You need something. And you got some officers that are so belligerent and how they talk to people and how they, just come off. Some people just take it. Don't make no complaints. Some people don't say anything. But again, you have a right to make a complaint if an officer is unprofessional, officer doesn't identify himself. Obviously, you got to come up to you. Sometimes some officers forget. They forget. And of course, now, most of them have a badge on and name tag, which they're supposed to have. If an officer stops you on a traffic stop, regardless of whether you're in violation or not, and the officer doesn't have a badge and a visible name tag, and then I'm talking in uniform. Now, a lot of times plainclothes officers will have an armband and a badge visible. Now, whether they have a name tag on, that's a whole different situation if you're in plain clothes, but you got to have that badge visible. Now, if you ask the officer, hey, what is your badge number and your name, they're required to give that to you. That's a requirement. There is no getting away or going around it. Because if you want to make a complaint and the officer fails to identify himself or say, I'm not giving you no badge number, nothing like that, that's a problem. That's a complaint right there. And if the officer gives you some type of roundabout story before he or she gives it to you and eventually gives it to you like 10 or 15, 20 minutes later, for no reason, obviously the officer is supposed to give it to you as soon as you ask, so that's another complaint that you could actually make, depending on the time frame. If the officer does it, obviously some emergency happens or shots fired while the officers conducted the traffic stop with you, and all of a sudden about 10, 15, 20 gunshots go off in the proximity. Most cases, the officer's going to let you go and tell you to get out of here, regardless. Give you your information and focus on that sounds of gunshots. But if hypothetically the officer doesn't give you the information or gives you some roundabout story, that's a major complaint. That officer never identified himself, and most won't do that. But there are some individuals that watch a lot of TV. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times they'll ask the officer, write your badge number and your name down. Nah, that doesn't work. The officer is not required to write his badge number and name down, nor is he or she required to give you a pen to do so. If you don't have a pen or pencil or what have you, or you can't type it in your phone or anything like that, then that's on you. Now, obviously, you should be able to remember the officer's badge number long enough to write it down and name. And if you can't, the individual gives you a ticket, it's going to be on there anyway. So that's not going to be a problem. But things like this happen. And another thing a lot of people do, don't wait till 3 or 4 months later after your ticket doubles or you get the ticket in the mail and you have forgot about it, then you want to make a complaint against the officer. It's never too late to make a complaint, but your validity starts to go down because this happened so-and-so, and 2 months later you come with the complaint, after you get that $150 ticket in the mail that says it's double because you forgot about it. That joint was under your couch or stuck to something in the car, the seat, under the seat. Yeah, you want to make that complaint now because you heated because of that $150. Oh, man, I remember this. This when the officer stopped me for no reason. And 9 times out of 10, it could have been that case where they stopped you for no reason. But you got to address these situations when they handle. It's when they happen. There is no procrastinating and waiting around. You know what I'm saying? For what? There's no reason to wait around for something like this that's going on if it's that serious. Now, again, you have to make a decision and use common sense and good judgment when to make a complaint and when not. Sometimes you don't have no complaint. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, if it's a situation where, belligerent, unprofessional, what have you, you got something legit, but there's so many things you could make a complaint on. And some things don't even have to involve you. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, if you see an officer doing something, let's say, I'm going to give you a scenario with something that may not involve you, that you may want to make a complaint on. Some people are like, look, man, police ain't messing with me. I ain't messing with them. Hypothetically, you see a police, let's see, they double parked, talking or what have you, and you get up on the scene and the traffic is, slow, and you get all the way up to the intersection where it's slowing at, and you find out it's just officers talking. A lot of times there's nothing going on, but all the officers are talking and laughing. They got all the street, traffic flow to a snail's pace because they just talking. A lot of times after officers go to a scene or something, it could have been a false alarm. They might get a call for a large fight or a domestic situation going on, and all the officers get there and they find out, hey, look, the guy was playing a video game and he had surround sound, and of course you got screaming, punches being thrown, but come to find out the officer was playing some type of video game, Street Fighter or something like that. The person rather was playing a game. So, weird scenarios like that happen. But somebody in the next apartment calls, hey man, sound like they fighting next door. I hear people screaming and all that. Kids playing a video game with a surround sound turned all the way up on 10. Officers get there, find out it's the game. They come back outside, 5 or 6 scout cars parked in front, and they just blocking traffic, talking, kicking it. That happens a lot of times. Instead of going somewhere else to a parking lot where officers sit in the parking lot and talk, they just sit there and hold up the traffic. That's very inconsiderate, and it does happen on a regular basis. That's something you can make a complaint on that doesn't really directly involve you, but if you wanted to, you could make a complaint. You could just go past and look at every one of those scout cars and get the numbers, or nowadays with technology, you could actually take pictures of them and make a complaint and email it in. So that's another scenario, if, other than sitting around or going somewhere like, you're not going to believe all these police officers would just stop. Yeah, that's cool to complain if that makes you feel good. But when it all boils down to you, let's not talk about what the officers are doing. Let's talk about what you did. What did you do to change the situation? Did you even make a complaint? You can't be that upset if you don't do nothing about it, because there's nothing stopping you from, hey, you know what? My tax dollars go toward law enforcement and all types of other public services, and these jokers just standing there, cars parked. It took me like 20 minutes to get up here to this, and I find out it's not an accident. It's just MPD or whatever jurisdiction holding up traffic. You can make a complaint. Now, some people will be like, man, I'm not even going that far. But it's up to you. You can't complain and go home and just have a panic attack because they took you through all the changes because you missed the light 4 times because MPD was holding up the track. You didn't do nothing about it. You didn't even take the time to send an email to the commanding official of that district. So come on now. Again, I question why police do some things, and you should as well, but also question yourself as why you wouldn't make a complaint. Now, I'm not speaking to anybody that's directly watching this video that doesn't apply to you. I'm just speaking in general. So when I say you, I'm not referring to you if you're watching this and it doesn't apply to you. But these things you have to address, because if nobody addresses it, it's like, okay, well, they're going to keep doing this. But the next time they do it, they'll be like, man, last time we was out here at Dope Park, somebody rolled past, took pictures of all us laughing and all that. They sent that to the commander. Hey, look, let's go, man. Trust me. When those pictures get to the commander, it's hard to say, oh, man, we was on the scene. Like, well, these pictures was taken at so-and-so. You guys cleared the run at 13:30. You know what I'm saying? I'm using military hours, 1:30, or something like that. I'll use those terms, 1:30 p.m. You guys cleared at 1:30 p.m. And let's say the pictures was taken at 2 o'clock. Why were you guys still there? They got to explain to the official a lot of times in a statement, that you got to write why they were still there, why you're congregating. That's the violation. You're congregating. It's, why aren't you patrolling your beat? So it can be done, and you can make complaints. And again, you have to pick and choose. It's no reason not to make a complaint with the technology. You don't even have to leave your home or wherever you are. Sometimes you might need a little help. You might need to ask me. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes I can say, subscribe, like the videos. Ask questions if you don't know if you have a complaint. And you can just put something in the comments for me. Now, whether or not I write your whole testimony up, I'm not sure on that. It depends on the scenario, it depends on the situation. I'll give you some actual advice, but on the same note, ask questions if you come into a situation where you think the police did you wrong. You know what I'm saying? Don't sit there and just take it and say, well, nothing's going to happen anyway. You giving up already. And like I said before, the easiest thing to do is give up. You give up before you even attempt to make a complaint. Well, that's madness to me. You know what I'm saying? You think they might have violated you? Ask somebody. Ask somebody that's law enforcement professional if you don't know anybody. And if you really have no one you can go to, that's knowledgeable, put it in the comments. You know what I'm saying? If you have a situation like, well, let me ask you this, man. You did a video on making police complaints. I had a situation years ago where they did something to my child, man. My child was fairly young, and they stopped my child and asked him, was he from the area? And my child said, yeah, he lives up the street. And officers wanted to get his name and information, and I never found out what happened. They never told him, why they needed his information, but my child cooperated and gave him the information. That's something that you have to address. Even if these situations don't involve you, a lot of times these situations may involve loved ones. You know what I'm saying? So even if it doesn't involve you, this is a video that you need to have knowledge on in case it may not happen to you, but it might happen to your child. Child might come home and be like, hey, we were coming home from the movies, or we was coming home from we was playing football or whatever. Police just rolled up on us, Dad, and told everybody to put their hands on the car, what have you. You know what I'm saying? Now, in some cases, it's legit. You got a situation where a crime has been committed in close proximity, and if they fit the description or what have you, and a lot of times it's got to be a specific description. The whole black male wearing so-and-so and it's vague, or white male wearing so-and-so and it's a vague description, that doesn't fly. You know what I'm saying? You need a little more than that. You know what I'm saying? So you have to handpick each scenario and really scrutinize them, because some of these situations are valid, but some of them are not. But if you don't take the time to even, go over it with a microscope when these things happen, these things are going to continue to happen. And I tell anybody, don't be scared to make no complaint against the police. A lot of people talk good game, and you know what I'm saying, with the whole cancel law enforcement movement, everybody screaming, yeah, F the police. That's cool. That's cool. That sounds good. Talk is cheap, though. If you really sincerely don't like police and all that, F the police, and you get violated, and you don't make a complaint, what does it say about you? You talk a good game, But when it's time to go against the police, you won't even make a complaint. You won't even meet with the commanding lieutenant. They set up a meeting for you to come in and discuss what you're complaining about. You won't even show up. You scared? What you scared of? You just was talking about F the police. You don't give a F about them and they this and that, and that's cool. You know what I'm saying? I've had scenarios with traffic stops where individuals made complaints on me. Now, me personally, I'm thinking all types of things when I'm interacting with the actual individual that I conduct a traffic stop. Some things I'm thinking are not professional. Some things I'm thinking are bizarre, like what is wrong with this individual? But there's no violation against me thinking. I can think all I want. As long as I don't say anything belligerent to that person or what have you, I can think as much as I want. The thing I don't I've never gotten into a debate about going back and forth or you just stop me. I had an individual years ago. This is interesting and funny to me. I didn't laugh. I might have smirked. And you really should, as an officer, you should try to refrain from smirking during a traffic stop because, the sarcasm and things like that, people often perceive that as sarcasm. After you give a individual a $200 or $300 ticket and you're smiling or you say something like, "Have a nice day." Come on now. How can I have a nice day and you just issued me a $150 speed violation with like 4 points? You know what I'm saying? So that's another situation that officers a lot of times will do things vindictive depending on if you say something really wild. Now, of course, you got the right to say whatever you want to say to an officer on the traffic stop. I'm just trying to tell you how to successfully make a complaint and how to pretty much get through a traffic stop without getting fired up with more tickets. Now, obviously, you got some officers, you can say all the stuff you want and curse at them and all that, and they're just going to write you the violations for the most part for what you was stopped for. Now, you got some officers, you start talking all that crazy stuff, they're going to take you through some changes. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times, they're going to find other things that's wrong. You got a broken tail light. You got one light out in the front. They're going to write you for everything they can. Or in a situation where you might be cooperative, you might not be belligerent, but your man, as the youngins say in the hood, your man's in there screaming, "F the police, these punk MFs just stopped us because we this or we that." Guess what? Everything was cool with you, but the jokers in the back and on the passenger side start screaming belligerent, calling officer names, or you this or you that. Guess what? They finding everything they can find wrong with your vehicle. Guess who's gonna pay them violations? You. Not your mans and them, as the youngins say, not your friends. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna eat every one of them violations because of this stupidity. When they should have just sat there and said nothing. Now it's cool to be outspoken and militant and all that. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's a way to do it. Now, intelligently, everybody can't talk all at the same time, and really none of them should be talking because the scenario at hand only affects the driver. You know what I'm saying? The passenger and the people in the back seat shouldn't be saying nothing. Keep your hands with it. They can be seen and all that. Just sit there and know you're not being passive. You're not weak because you're sitting there and not saying nothing. That's where people get it confused. Your ego starts to come out and you start talking crazy to the police. And guess what? They call for backup because it's getting a little hostile. Might raise dispatch. Dispatch, send me 2 more units. I got the individuals in the vehicle but starting to become hostile. Guess what? Now, when that transmission comes over the air, the officers, and for the most part, everybody and their mother coming because they hear the somewhat panic in your voice on the radio, like, okay, officer in trouble, or it might be getting ready to pop off. Now, some officers looking for it. You know what I'm saying? As they say, some officers want to smoke. Some don't think that all these officers out here are passive and they eating donuts and all that craziness. There's some officers that just really are just hyper. They're extremely what's the word I want to use? Argumentative. Some of them are even violent, overly aggressively violent. So trust me. If you can avoid these situations, don't put yourself in a situation where you got to deal with something that might change your life or cause you to lose your life over some foolishness. Because it's happened. You know what I'm saying? It has happened. But the thing is, now you got about 7, 15, 20 officers on one scene. Depending on what jurisdiction you are, that's how they come. Now, you know, DC might not get like that, but depending on if you somewhere down south and you start talking crazy and you're on 95 or somewhere in one of them good old boy networks where it's just a hick town where it's maybe a few officers or what have you know what I'm saying, that's like that, and they don't really get that much action. When something like that goes on, they sending everybody and their mother. You might have a few officers from another jurisdiction because they paranoid. You know what I'm saying? So don't put yourself in that situation if you don't have to because of egos and that. If you got a legitimate complaint, chill, let them do their part, and make the complaint as soon as you can. You know, you got to use common sense, and that's what a lot of times people miss. The common sense is not used. You know what I'm saying? When they play the complaint tape, and a lot of times most officers got body-worn cameras, when they play that video, of course, you're not going to remember half of the stuff you said. You're not going to remember none of the stuff your friends said in the back. You're not going to remember calling the officer all types of vulgar names, and you know, you might have said some racial stuff to him and all that. You know, when they play that video, you're going to feel like an ant. You're going to feel stupid because you know no matter what, they looking like, okay. Even if you didn't commit the violation, in their heads, they like, yeah, this clown likely passed the red light, or this clown probably did this. Your credibility is gone. You know what I'm saying? You had a legitimate complaint because they did pull you over because of the type of your vehicle. You had a complaint until you took it there. Now you still got the complaint, but how far you think it's gonna go after they play that video and all the screaming and cursing y'all did at the officer? Yeah, they pulled you over because you was black. Yeah, they pulled you over because you was white or whatever race. It happens. But with all the belligerence and clowning and the crazy talk, y'all were hyped up. You know what I'm saying? You felt good about yourself after it was all over. Nobody got locked up. Okay, the police took you through some change. They got everybody out of the vehicle, what have you. Y'all live to tell a story, you know, for another day and cool. But guess what? You want to make a complaint now, you know, because you did get the ticket. You know what I'm saying? So you think about it after everything cools off, you ain't really working. You ain't really got $300 to pay for the ticket. Or say, for example, the vehicle's in your parents' name. So, you know, you showing off, or y'all, you know, they doing it for a show off or putting on a show. But guess what? Now you got to explain to your parents why you got a $300 ticket. You know what I'm saying? You tell your parents say, you know, well, you know, we can make a complaint. You tell your parents, hey, this is what happened. Well, you know, some of your parents might have some knowledge. Hey, that's not a legitimate reason to stop you. We're going to make a complaint. So in your mind, you're feeling good. But what you don't know the whole time, the officers had body-worn cameras on. So when your mom or whatever, you know, make the complaint, you know, on your behalf or what have you, and they play that tape, and your mother see you screaming and cursing because in her mind or your father's mind, they don't see none of this at home because you're not going to go there at home. You cursing, you calling, you know, and this is hypothetical if the driver's doing it as well. But even if the driver's not doing it, even if you're not doing it as the driver, your friends that your parents might know cursing, going wild and like that, man, you're going to have more to deal with than you had to deal with from the start. Not only do you now got to look at the situation with the $300 ticket, you got to deal with your mother, you know, and your father or whoever your guardian is, because you just on video, you know, with your friends acting a fool. Even if you didn't do anything, your parents going to be like, you know, oh, you can't go. These dudes can't go. They can't come over here no more, and you're not going nowhere with them. So that puts you in a whole situation. I'm just asking you to use common sense. You got a complaint against the police, or if you feel like you've been violated, find out if you have a actual valid complaint first. If you have a valid complaint first, then start the process. But don't wait 3 or 4 weeks later. Now, if you don't have a valid complaint, or you just felt like, I shouldn't have got the ticket, they just gave me the ticket because I'm black, I'm white, you know what I'm saying? I use all those, or whatever race you are. You've got to be able to support that. It's not good enough just to sit there and say that. Now, a lot of times that is the case. They did pull you over because you were black. They did pull you over because you were white. They might have pulled you over because you were white. And I'm just using these, black and white. I'm not going to go through the whole ethnicity and race. So I'm not going through every race. It happens. But they're not, they may have pulled you over because you were white and you were in a high crime area of DC where there predominantly a lot of whites don't frequent. They might have pulled you over because you were black, because you were in predominantly white or other race, a racial made up area that's not black. It happens. I'm not going to sit and tell you that it doesn't happen, but you have to be able to support that. Just sitting there saying it, that's not enough. And the scenario I was going to go into before I went off into a little further was I had a traffic stop years ago. Stopped an individual, and I believe I stopped. I'm not even sure what the traffic stop was for. However, it was a valid traffic stop. I believe the individual. It's so long. It was on K Street, but it was on K Street. It was actually on the service road where K Street. It's something that I remember that much, and this was maybe over 15, 20 years ago. The individual, I stopped, advised them, hey, this Officer Fair, Dennis Fair, Metropolitan Police Department, assigned to the 2nd District, and advised him what he was stopped for, and went back and forth. I got his information in. I issued the individual a citation, and the individual told me, he said, you only stopped me. He said, you stopped me because I was black. You only stopped me because I was black. Now, in my mind, I was kind of puzzled. I might have smirked because I was looking at him like, maybe he can't, I'm brown skinned, but I'm black, you know what I'm saying? And maybe he didn't realize that I was black, or, this is another black male, you know what I'm saying? But he told me the only reason I stopped him because he was black. So I'm looking like, man, this in my mind, of course, like I said, you can think what you want to think in your mind because, obviously if I say everything I thought, then that would be very unprofessional in a law enforcement or any capacity. You can't always say exactly what you're thinking. But in my mind, I was like, dude, I'm black. So you probably gonna have to use that on somebody else. That won't work with me. I'm black like you. So you can't say I just stopped you because you black. And don't get me wrong. Don't think that some individuals don't profile that are of that same race. Now, for example, there are officers, and a lot of times when people think of racial profiling, they think of black on white, white on black, or another race on another race. However, I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to really go, and I'm going to let this go, because I can talk, I can keep going. But I'm going to tell you this, there are scenarios, and I'm going to use this one as one. There are scenarios where actual individuals of the same race profile other individuals of the same race. It does happen. Now, a lot of times when people think of racial profile, they think of a white officer profiling a black officer, or a black officer profiling a white person. A white person. I said officer, but you think of a black officer profiling, a white officer profiling a black individual or that of another race. There are individuals that are the same race. There are individuals that are black that profile other black males. It does happen. It does happen. I'm not here to tell you that it doesn't happen, but what I'm saying is the stereotype with that, it's more of a myth thinking process that most individuals believe that only white officers or officers of other races profile. You do have individuals that profile their own race or what have you. And I'm not saying that it's anything wrong with a black officer stopping a black individual, and that's not always the case. But there are some officers that are black that have profile based on the type of the vehicle the person was driving, based on the individual themselves, the way they were dressed and things of that nature. It does happen. So when I say profiling, it does happen, but don't get it in your mind that only a white officer could profile a black person and only a black person could profile, a black officer could profile a white person. It doesn't necessarily work that way. And that's the so-called stereotypical scenario But there are scenarios where other races profile the same race. It does happen. You know what I'm saying? So look, I'm gonna close out. If you find yourself in a situation, I would suggest you keep this video or save it, share it, because somebody's gonna come in contact with the police, and it's not gonna work out well. And it might be a situation where you just don't know. It might be a situation where they gave you a ticket and the officer wasn't professional, or it might have been a scenario where they just took a report for you. They came to your house for a report and they weren't professional. You know what I'm saying? The officer, just in the whole report taking scenario wasn't professional. Didn't just wasn't professional. There's some officers that will take a report and they're not what's the word I want to use? They're not understanding. A lot of times they are sarcastic and things like that. Obviously for an officer to take a report for you and then, and I'm going to give you a scenario, a theft from auto, for example. And he take the report, you had your window smashed and your laptop was in the back, and it was taken. Then, during the whole process, the officer said something like, I bet you won't leave that laptop in the back no more. Something like that. That's a complaint. That's unprofessional. That's unprofessional to say something like that, and there are 1,000 different scenarios that I can give you of legitimate complaints where you should make a complaint. And there are 1,000 different scenarios where you got no complaint whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? I've had situations, and this is another scenario. Individual told me, he said, man, I hate police. You know what I'm saying? I'm a police, I'm in full uniform or what have you, you know what I'm saying? So that doesn't bother me. After a period of being in the position as a police officer for a long period of time, you're not even bothered by that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Telling you hate me, you hate the police, although I'm in full uniform, it's pretty much like telling me you look nice. That doesn't bother me at all. Okay, you hate the police. So I asked the guy, I said, why you hate the police? He said, I just hate them MFs, man. He said, y'all, man, y'all, he hit me with the y'all stuff. Y'all just, he said, man, I remember one time they locked up my father, man, and at the time I was a young child, I said, I remember it like it was yesterday. He said, I wasn't a baby or nothing, but they locked my father up, just me and him, and I just what did he say? It's just in the back of my mind, man. It's traumatized. They locked my father up while I was with him. You lock a man's father, a child's father up while he's with his child. I mean, why would you lock a father up? So I said, what was the scenario? What was the situation? They just locked him up for no reason? He said, father had a warrant. Wait, let me get this right. Your father had a warrant? Yeah, he had a misdemeanor warrant. But they ain't have to lock him up in front of me, you know what I'm saying? Why would you how you lock a man up in front of his child? Of course, after that, I said, okay, man, I get it. I understand. I hear you. And I left it at that. I'm not going to go back and forth with something like that. I mean, that's all you can do is laugh. Now, I didn't laugh in his face, but I just said, I hear you, man. I hear you. But come on, man. They locked your father up because he had a misdemeanor warrant. Yeah, that's traumatizing, and that's embarrassing to see your father get carried off in handcuffs. I've done it many times. I've arrested people in front of their children. But on the same note, it wasn't like I'm doing it just for the hell of it or profiling. Your father had a warrant. I mean, what was the police supposed to do? Say, look, man, give him a pass, man. You got his child with it. It's misdemeanor warrant, but it's a warrant. It could have been something like a simple assault. Could have been something not as serious as a felony, but it could have been something where the individual father might have had a misdemeanor warrant for not going to court on assaulting his mother. But you don't know the scenario, but the bottom line is something like that, you can't make a complaint because the officers locked you up and you just don't like the fact that they did their job. That's a situation that pointless situation where you have no complaint. There's no validity to that. The officers did their job. Your father had a warrant. What would you expect him to do? Just cut him loose or tell him, get out of jail free card on Monopoly or something? Look, I'm gone. If you like the video, subscribe. If you don't like the video, you can put dislike. If you got a problem with something I said, put it in the comments. All I ask you to do, even if it's some other videos on here that you don't necessarily want to listen to or what have you, you don't have to. All I ask you to do is subscribe, because at some point one of these videos will be something that's going to help somebody. And you might not need it. You might know what I know, or maybe you might know a little more. You know what I'm saying? But subscribe, and you never know when you're going to have a situation where you got to make a complaint, or you got to sit down and type that information up in details. You know what I'm saying? Because simply just typing, hey, look, they stopped me because I was this. They just stopped me because the car was driving, and sending that to the district, that's not good enough. You need some validity to the complaint on why you think that, on why this happened. Hey, the officer's behind me for 12 blocks or so and so. It needs to be detailed, and it's much more to making a complaint than just with no valid points in the complaint as to why you think that you were violated, or why you think that the officers violated you by conducting an illegal traffic stop. So give it thought and share it with somebody else, or like I said, if do nothing else, subscribe, because there will be a topic that will hit home at some point for you. It's just a matter of going through the videos. There'll be something that of interest that you might be able to relate to. But again, don't allow the police to harass you or violate you without doing something about it. You know what I'm saying? Because if you allow it, I'm not even going to put my energy on how screwed up the police are nowadays. I'm going to put my energy on how screwed up are you not to do nothing about it. You talk to all this stuff. You hate police or F the police. Not you per se, but a lot of people hate the police. And I'm cool with that. That didn't never cut into my paycheck. It never affected me. I've heard people tell me, hey, I pay your taxes and this and that. You know what I'm saying? I heard that. I didn't really get into the whole going back and forth, or I'll have your badge. You know what I'm saying? You get all that stuff. But no matter what, I always got paid every 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying? And these individuals, some were arrested. And, got to let people talk. I have a good control of my emotions, so I'm not going to go back and forth. But a lot of officers don't. And when you get that officer that's going back and forth with you, that's belligerent, that's very argumentative, a lot of times you got a valid complaint. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go. Do something about it. Don't just sit there. Again, it's easiest road to travel. The easiest thing to do, rather, is give up. You know what I'm saying? If that's what you want to do, then there's no need to complain about the police. You're not going to make no complaint. Stop complaining and just shut up. Simple as that. Hey, look, I'm gone. If you need something in the comments, put it in there. Or if there's a question or something you didn't understand, put it there. I'm there. Later.